Welcome back to the Prepare Like a Pro podcast. This week on the show we have Bohdan Babijczuk. Bohdan is one of Australia's most respected fitness coaches, has had a strong involvement with AFL football and athletics. He is highly experienced physical preparation coach. Bohdan has worked with the Melbourne Football Club, the Australian national basketball team, the Boomers, as head fitness coach from 2002-2006, while also consulting and specialist speed coach with Richmond, St Kilda and Kangaroos during 2005-2006. Before these appointments, Bohdan was the fitness coordinator at Hawthorn Football Club from 1994 until 2004, after a stint with Collingwood as a strength and conditioning coach from 1991 to 1993. Bohdan has a Bachelor of Education, Physical Education, and is a Level 5 athletics coach. Before we start episode 50 with Bohdan, the Prepare Like a Pro podcast mission is to empower aspiring athletes and staff with practical knowledge from some of the industry's most inspiring individuals and to strengthen the AFL community. If you like the show, please show your support by following us on Instagram, and to subscribe to the podcast, we're on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. Bear with me, guys. Join us now. Remember, you can send through some questions for Bohdan as well. At the end of the chat, we'll do a Q&A.
Got it.
We got there.
Yeah, thanks. Well done, Jack.
There you go. Well done to you, mate. Thanks for that. It's not the easiest thing to do, but persistence pays, hey?
Yep. No, we're there. We're under pressure, but we came through.
Yeah. You got a couple of cool Guernseys in the background there.
Oh, yeah. That's from Dave Anderson when he played at the Raptors, Toronto, at 13, and Rachel Jarry got myself and actually Valerie Stoimanov that worked with her and helped out with the Opals, and Dom Trimboli to help. So they got the girls to get us a Guernsey signed,
Very nice.
Which was nice. Not many do all that, but it's they're here in the study because my wife said the house will be junked up otherwise with too many. I love memorabilia. It's all in a box.
Yeah, fair enough.
Better off having
good,
not dog family instead.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, take us back to the beginning of your career. What age did you discover you had a passion for athletics and physical preparation for sport?
Yeah, Jack. I had it for my whole life. Initially I just loved athletics. I was hooked by Olympic Games. And then I became an athlete, and I competed nationally and in long jump, triple jump, and decathlon. And from that, I went into coaching. Well, actually, I didn't actually go into coaching. I just wanted to help. And the story behind wanting to help athletes was towards the end of my athletics career. I was still competing till I was about 38 and 35 wow. in nationals. I still did a decathlon and triple jump. I think at 38 I still finished about fifth. And but I was mainly coaching myself, and I used to read because I didn't know where to get help, and that's probably what drove me to wanting to be a coach. And my athletics club, I had this kid, it's my first athlete that I really coached, but I didn't really coach for coaching's sake. I just wanted to help him, and I held all the records in jumps, and his name was Simon Jackatine. I said, Simon, I think I can help you break my record. And that would be pretty cool. So I started training with me, so we trained together. And then I actually knew when he made nationals, he won a state title and he broke my record, which was fantastic. And I thought, this is fun. It's actually just as much fun in that transition phase that a lot of athletes have problems with in their life, like letting go.
Transitioning, sure.
No issue with the transition because I saw myself as a helper. By then I'd got a physical education degree. And I went back and did some postgraduate studies, funny enough, in recreation. And I just had a passion to help. And even as a probably about 15, 16-year-old, I used to devour Modern Athlete and Coach, which There's this author. I'm going back a bit now, but he was Jess Java, and he was I think he was a Latvian. I don't want to get it wrong. Latvian, and he did all the Soviet and East German articles, and they put them into athletic journals. I've still got the old journals. I'm talking of in the 60s. So as a self-coached athlete, I would devour the information. So when I did the PE course, I actually found I was ahead of because a lot of the reference books, were written but not updated, whereas the new stuff that I was reading was all updated, coming in from Europe, America, and a lot of translations on every event, and so that got me interested. And I thought, well, if I'm going to be self-coached, I've got to improve myself. So I improved my knowledge, and out of that, I knew the transition came when I saw the athlete that I was coaching, Simon Jacatine. I was involved in decathlon. I had one throw in the distance, which was a lousy one. It was at Canberra. Simon, I saw him at the triple jump pit. He hurt himself. And so I ran up to see how he was, and I forfeited my throws. And I thought, okay, you've just become a coach. You care more about yourself. So I finished up with the lousy, and I didn't go back to complete my third throws. So after that, people recognise it. They recognise if you're passionate, and that's the main thing. And Australian Track and Field Coaches Association put me through courses, and it was approaching towards the Olympics. Still well off. Look, I'm talking about 5 years out, and I went to games because I was a teacher. Pacific School Games. And my squads, which I used to coach for nothing, I was just passionate, finished up with some national champions. One of the girls, she's still 20 plus years later, still holds the Australian triple jump record. And so I just put a lot of time into those people, and just passionate, and in a way they developed my coaching as much as anyone. As much as any course I ever did. The course was a starting outline. Yeah. But no, I was just looking through some of my filing cabinets, and I've probably got about 3 full filing cabinets, and I had plans and data and on every single one of them. Like every session that we did was catalogued. It's like reads like a book. It's just like I thought. I actually surprised myself how much work I did. It was just a process, but I wasn't impressing myself. It's just like that's just what it took. And
do you think that was something that you wanted as an athlete, that coach?
100%. I missed out. Really good question, Jack. It's like, well, some people say they failed as an athlete. No, I sort of had good success, but I just loved the sport. I loved every sport, mind you. I was playing football as well, and I had a choice between, at that point we're in South Melbourne's zone, to go into South Melbourne or athletics, and I had to make a choice, and I was doing really well. Football was a bit of an unknown, and athletics I could control. Where I got to, it was all very measurable, and I thought, I just want to keep doing it. I made some really good friends, and I just wanted to continue for friendship's sake as well as performance. But I found that, I wish I had a coach like myself, a well-trained coach and a passionate coach that could have guided me through those years. So in the end, I almost think I was not very coachable because I thought I knew too much, like most athletes, and they start. It's not an arrogance; it's a defence mechanism in a way. You think, to come off what was already working, but it wasn't working to where it should have been. If I look back on it, I should have. It's like saying, "Well, look, I'm playing well." It's like in footy, that adage of, "Oh yeah, but fine, you're going to teach me running, but will it get me a kick?" And I'm thinking, "Yeah, well, you did all that. That will help you go better and improve you." And or someone saying, "Well, I'm already running 10 flat. I don't need to listen to you anymore. Yet you might have run 9.9 or 9.8, and or just perform better in big meets." And so, I probably stuffed up my own career in a way. It's like most of us, we practice on ourselves, but we're passionate, and then you actually realise intrinsically exactly where you went wrong through injury, through wrong methods, then I look back, and I kept data, so my information is very real. I look back and I think, boy, I stuffed this up. I spent too much time getting too strong, not enough getting ballistic, elastic, not enough technical.
And what sort of data were you tracking back then? Was it like the weight you're lifting for the reps and then your running times?
Yeah, look, I was everything I did, training, wind, approximate wind reading. I didn't have a wind gauge at the sessions, but I'd go, I got to know 2 metres per second, northwest wind. Where
did you get that? Is that a common athletics thing to do?
That's when I was doing, from all my reading, I used to read athletes' journals, and so I'd go, and they would say, write a training log, and I'd see so many different athletes from overseas and here. And the other one of the biggest influences in my whole career was actually just competing, but the athletes, and especially in decathlon, like you might get to, I was not a very good shot putter, and I was good at long jump. So I'd help out the guys that weren't good long jumpers with their run up and the technical side, and then that me through the shot put. And so we actually helped each other because each of us understood that particular person I'm competing against just wants to get better themselves. If they beat me, fair enough, but they're going to help me too beat myself. And so in doing it better and had more fun. And so those athletes would give you their training plans, what they were doing, including everyone. In the era that I grew up, it was professional but not cutthroat, and everyone really passed on a lot of advice, and coaches would too. In a way, you probably got too much advice because you think that works well. He's a good athlete, or she's a good athlete, and then you'd go off track. So you never stuck long enough with what really worked, and that's where I probably did need a coach, because I'd listen to every single person that I was competing against that I felt had something to say. But in doing so, I picked up a lot of different methods, and that's where the training came through. And they're really every time, every rest phase, and kind of. I was mainly doing long jump, but I was actually getting my recoveries. But then with decathlon, the same sort of thing. And I write little technical data points at the bottom, what I felt improved me or that type of thing.
Yeah, interesting. And that's something you get your athletes to do, a training journal?
They don't. I do, funny enough. People seem to think, I'll leave it to the coach. And I don't think they're that good at doing it. I looked at everyone's, and because I was passionate, you're probably right in your assessment early there, Jack, is that what drove you? I was probably preparing to be a coach my whole life, and as I was doing athletics, but not realising it, and in the end, and it's the data, and I look at some of the great coaches we've got here, like Gary Bourne, that coached Mitchell Watt and Jai Tarima, and these guys are winning medals at World Champs and Olympics, and Gary's the same. He's meticulous with his data collection, and then it's not just collecting it; it's analysing, and then and you almost work backwards. You go, okay, this is the event. And one of the things the Australian Track and Field Coaches Association, it just put me, when I went to my level 5, they made me earn it. At the point that level 5 is equivalent to my level 3, and they just upgraded it, and to wait many years before they let you go up a level, and you actually had to, in athletics, produce like world-class athletes. So you knew what. They stopped me from, I thought I was ready, and they said, no, you're nearly there. Like I had long jumpers jumping around 7 metres, 79, 780, and they wanted those athletes to go on and be at another level. So 8 metres basically got you into an Olympic final. And so I was right on that cusp of coaching someone from, and I mean, not getting a ready-made athlete, coaching, these were young kids that I'd sort of helped develop just from, not from scratch. They loved athletics, but pretty well from a very young age. Yeah. And then from there went into junior development with the national program. But so many good coaches were in that program, and like I said, every athlete you learn from, and you talk to them, and you learn from what their influences were and what went to making them such a good athlete, or not always a good athlete? What made some of us not achieve what we should have achieved? You have to look at both sides of it.
Yeah, and like you mentioned before, how do you, especially in today's world where there's so much information out there, how do you keep an athlete that you're working with focus on one thing and doing that really well rather than listen to so many voices like you referenced?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
how do
interesting.
you filter what's important and what's distraction?
Yeah, two stories on that. Or one is, well, three. Sorry, I tend to see.
That's all right, mate.
We're back into line.
Everyone's engaged.
But then the first thing is that I learnt through my level 3 or 5 is know your event. Really understand and know your event inside out. And that's just not knowing it from data, stats, the technical side, every aspect, the emotional side, and then once you know the event, then you work backwards and you start putting the pieces that go into that event. And if, I know a lot of people are football people here, don't just know your weight training or conditioning training or running training, know what the coaches want from this particular team you're working from, and that's only that team, and then know what other teams want, and then see what you can provide in that picture. So when I go back to my jumping coaching, I had a girl, Nicole Dennis, and she's a Western Australian. Actually, two of the girls that I coached at that point were number 1, number 2 in Australia, and Carmen Miller was at Tasmania. So and I'm thinking, well, I've had these other people in Victoria that weren't jumping as well. One is the two girls were extremely talented, but what we did, especially with Nicole, she was really meticulous from WA. She'd come over, we'd do a 2-week block, and we'd focus basically on one aspect of the technical model. So once you know the model, it might have been, for instance, the runner. And then Nicole would go back to WA, and her husband, Jeff, he would do all the videoing and send it back exactly on and compare to what she was doing with me. So we had to improve that particular aspect. And then she would come back again and we'd leave that aspect because it was perfect. She just worked on it, and we'd have the next pace. So from the run-up, it connected to the last few steps into the takeoff, for instance, and then the hop, and then the flight, and then the landing each time. And it took a long process, but I coached Nicole since she was 19, 19, till she was in her 30s, and each year she kept improving and kept pushing the record up. And we found that was very meticulous because we didn't get confused. Often when you coach, you might be so focusing on, I don't know, say it's football, because there'll probably a lot to it. Say you're just doing a running kick into, you just flat out pick up the ball and run flat out and kick it. And you might be focusing on ball drop, and then you go, oh yeah, but you didn't run very well on here, you weren't low enough. And so you start going off track, and so you start giving them 3 or 4 or 5 different things, so you don't give them a focus. If it was, let's just focus on your run, don't worry about the ball drop. If it sprays, it sprays, but we'll fix that when we get to that. But we try to fix too many things. And same in the gym, you might be thinking of improving hamstring strength or mobility, and you start going, oh, we're going to do deadlifts, we're going to do, okay, now we'll do hamstring curls, now we'll do, and you start throwing the kitchen sink at them instead of being patient and understanding the model and the process and where it's actually heading, and that was the big thing. So that saves you going off track too much, and that's a big. Yeah. And you throw everything, and it's you just have to understand it's a process and do the simple things well that'll build to the harder things later.
Yep. And you mentioned athletes helping you along the way, and your own personal experience being an athlete helping you. Are there some guys that pop up in mind, men or women, that have been almost mentors to you, or people that have helped your career?
Oh, look, initially, because I was, I had my own passion, and so my PE teachers, I went to Noble Park High School, and Neil McCallum and Gavin Mooney just kept inspiring me. And I'd lost my father at 15, so these guys almost stepped in as father figures and kept me going. Like I found it really hard to study. I didn't tell anyone at school, so I was coming through that era of, you don't tell anyone type of thing. So I sort of carried that with me. And I was probably going off the rails a bit, not badly, but just not focusing on my study, and when I should have put more effort in. But at the same time, I was probably trying to do part-time jobs and stuff because my parents were immigrants and didn't have much coin, so I had to get out and do part-time jobs, holiday jobs, and that type of thing that weren't anything to do with the field that I liked. So the PE teachers kept me going, and then when I got in, I got accepted to it was Monash Teachers College, Rusden, and it sort of kept changing its name. And Bill Walker, who was the head of PE, he saw the passion that I had for everything, and he saw that those sort of people are needed in teaching, and so he saw me as, in his eyes, as a person of that could have some quality in teaching. And so he kept me in. At one point I got accepted into the public service because, as I said, I didn't have a father growing up through the teenage years and the university years. But so I thought I'd better go out. Now I've got a job, so I passed the tests for the public service. And then I was going, but I had friends from athletics that I used to compete with that said, no, we can't let him go. They went to the head, and Bill Walker was the head of the PE department, and he kept me going. So, there by the grace of God, I would have missed out on my biggest passion in life just for the sake of, an existence and money. And I think, and my mum said, make sure you get an education and all that. So she forced me as well. So we're pretty blessed in that way. And then every athlete from there on in that I'd mixed with had massive influences. And then when I did the Australian Track and Field Coaches Association were absolutely brilliant. We had calibre of coaches of Norm Osborne, who's passed away, and his biggest protege just passed away on Sunday, Rick Mitchell, Olympic silver medalist in the 400 metres. I had Phil King, who was Debbie Flintoff King's husband, and I used to do camps for the DFK camps. And again, filtering information. I used to take Debbie for some of the plyometrics, and I'd be going through plyometric programs, and I'd watch Phil as he'd see how passionate I was, and I'd go, Phil, you're not listening. And then I worked out he was just listening to the bits that he needed to pick up, and he knew his model plucked the important bits, and that's going back to that original question that you said, what do you look for? He knew his event. And he thought, no, I can't do that. But because sometimes the things that you do will injure that person because they haven't got the background to absorb that work at that time. And some of the stuff, probably radical triple jump stuff, that worked for a very high-level conditioned athlete. But that's why I say to people, don't always copy, understand your event and really understand it. Not and at the same time, I'm sure I don't know any coach that hasn't made mistakes going along the way, but learn from your mistakes. Hence, just understand. And always, I know we've got in this present era, one of the dangers is we're very mechanised in electronic data, and people coming out of the football club with the pen and poke the little thing, wellness charts and all that, and then often it's read later. There's a lot to be said for human communications. We are human beings, and we're in a physical and communication thing. And what you don't want to lose as a coach is that passion, that intimacy of exchange of ideas, feelings with the athlete. And one of the things is just to go up to each person and say hello, and then actually ask them how they're feeling. How do they feel after their last session? I just think it's nearly one of the most crucial things you can do in coaching. And they'll tell you, like last week, they'll tell you they were fantastic on exactly the same day. And this week, they're not feeling great, they're stiff, sore, and for whatever reasons. And then if you've got data, you can sort of look into it. We can talk to them about it. You need time. But you almost need to, before people come in, set aside almost 20 minutes just to have a chat before you start your session. And
so you can get a good understanding of where they're at.
Yeah, and what cause and effect, what's been happening in a lot of things, and that'll affect.
And do you, so you know how you mentioned the objective side, noting those down, do you also write down that sort of how they're feeling and that subjective side?
Yeah, definitely. And some people will go through moods, and I'll write, no, they're very moody today, or this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And actually learn how
they're
to handle
overreaching.
it. And some athletes handle moods, they play their cards close to their chest, so you can't get that out. I mean, I learnt that through teaching a lot too, because you could have a fantastic student and all of a sudden they'd go off the rails and you'd find out their parents had divorced, that no one told you. A lot of stuff was held in. And that kid was riding that and then suddenly blew up in your session. And it was like, wow, that's unusual. And other ones too, from a sporting point of view, I mean, that's the nurturing care type thing. But some of them are just hard asses and they can go through everything and they actually get so tough, they compete really tough. And so they react differently. So, and again, that's the university that you're in. It's actually with your squad, with your athletes, and you learn a hell of a lot. And you can't be judgmental because it can send you the wrong way too. So you just got to absorb information and not look at it from your perspective. You have to look at it from their perspective, which is hard.
That's a great point. And that's something that can so easily happen, can't you? You can just write the same programs that you enjoy doing, or the same cues, and talk about your perspective the whole time.
That was my mistake early as a coach. Is in my transition, what I had to go from was how I was a coach, and let's talk AFL here. Is that some of the early coaches, they would only coach like Alan Jeans or something like that because that's their only influence, and it was a successful. It may not have worked for a different club with people made up of different people, different statures, different preparation levels, different
Game
sizes.
Changes a bit.
Yeah, everything. And so that's the same. And I was saying, I can always remember, I distinctly, in retrospect, think back to my coaching, and I'd go, look, when I was an athlete, I was blah, blah. I'm thinking, I must have drove some of those athletes mad. And it's like you're sort of putting yourself on a pedestal and saying, look, I made national finals and blah, blah, doing this and this. You have to be a bit more subtle about it, but they were the mistakes I learned along the way, is to basically say, well, try this, try that, how does it feel, type of thing, and then you'll get it from their perspective rather than ramming it down their throat. This is when I was a coach, this is the way it works, because it worked for me, but they're all different, and sometimes many different generations and different backgrounds. I've coached people that are from Christians, Muslims. Bachelor came in the early days, and another kid that long jumped over 8 metres. He came out of Algeria. He couldn't go back. He was a refugee. So there's different emotions and stresses on different people. Some that are very living comfortably, that you saw in our eyes, but maybe not comfortably at home because of issues. Some people that had different stress levels, anxiety levels, and you see Naomi Osaka, people judged her, and then all of a sudden you see that this person you got on a pedestal is very vulnerable. And often the more the superstar, the more pressures. Like I was at Hawthorn when Shane Crawford won the Brownlow, and he was a good, carefree, fun-loving type of guy. He won the Brownlow, and then I said, oh, no, here we go. I remember saying we've got to prepare even harder, and he over-prepared. Like everything was just too much, because he'd go to someone wanted him for a meeting, the club wanted him to promote the club after a Brownlow. So all these other interferences, and took away his actual love for just getting out there and having a kick and running and it's like, so there's so many. You have to coach the individual and understand the individual, and that takes time. It's not something a teaching manual or a technical book will teach you.
And it evolves as well. It sounds like with the athlete is.
I coached for nothing. Even when I worked at Hawthorn, I thought, well, they're paying me enough here. And the same with teaching. I thought, well, they're paying me money. You kids, and I know some of the parents can't afford it, but I can just hopefully give you the love that I had from the sport and pass it on. And if you get better, you'll enjoy it more. And that's why you're coming here, I figure. And that was my main aim. And so it was really to help and then transition. And I thought, I'm going okay with the coaching. This will keep me in, and I had some really good funding coming towards year 2000. Olympic Solidarity kicked in money because we had our home Olympics, and we had exposure to like some of the great coaches of the world. There was Victor Sanaev, who won he had all the stuff actually that the VIS or the AOS translate. I helped with the translations because my parents were Ukrainian, and he was head coach of Soviet Union. But Victor won the triple jump in 1968, 1972, 1976. And if that wasn't enough, in 1980, he backed up for a silver. And so I thought, this guy's in triple jump, you don't last that long. If you're not in a wheelchair after 4 Olympics, there's something special about you. And I thought longevity, his programs must have been built around longevity. And then they were so systematic when I was translating them, and hence the institutes wanted those they paid, the rumour was around $1 million for all that sort of stuff to get it all translated, to get it all out, for him to sit in there and go through it with all the coaches. And then we had Vitali Petrov, the Ukrainian coach of Bubka, and he still keeps it. He's got these guys have the methodology and the coaching now. So he went and he coached in Brazil, and that guy, forgotten his name now, but it's like Tiago or something. And Tiago, he won. I think it was the medal in Rio, and so his methods are really producing good results constantly, and it didn't matter where he went. So we were exposed to these people, as well as Carl Lewis's coach, Tom Tellez, Lauren Seagrave with all the drills and things, and every one of them, they all had the one thing: massive passion, and they've been in the sport for a long time. They collected data, and I know we collect data based on GPS and all that, and I always go, that's fine if you know what you're collecting and why you're collecting and what the model is. And then I go back to the data that Sanaev collected was written and performance-based. So it was based on technical data, but also any of the drills, and also daily data, and also from other coaches and comparative. So he got a lot of comparative from different squads. Tom Tellez, Carl Lewis's coach, his data, he used to go, he canned us all. He said, how many of you guys take videos? He said, I've got videos of every top athlete in the world, their start, their transition phase, and all the sprint and the actions. And he said, and that is a means for reviewing your session. And I've sort of tried to do the same type of thing. I use one of the apps, and because the data is looking at a video and analysing in real motion, and I actually find out how many things I'll probably have 7,000 videos on my app. That's why I'm on this little phone here with us, because I can't get enough data. I had to delete the Facebook off the bigger iPad, and I've got 2 iPads just to get enough of my videos.
Data.
Data and pictures of my dog. That's all. And that's the data is the videos, and then after it, I analyse it, and then I send out voiceovers to every athlete that I coach, so that I give them a double learning. But at the same time, I'm as much as you go, oh, the athlete goes, thank you, and that, but I think, geez, I stuffed up here. My positioning was wrong. I didn't see this. I didn't see they do 2 steps here instead of 1. They're not as low as I thought. The landings on their feet aren't correct. There's a lot of tension in the face. So then I think
see a lot more on video than in live.
My next session is based on what I'll do before I do my next session. I'll go back into that video that we went through. So that's basically a catalogue of that session. as well, and I'll think, right, this is where the next stage is building, because if you see, say 10 different people, you don't want to do a standard session. You've got to do it for that person to build on and then develop. So, otherwise it's a bit like I said with the coaching. You start thinking a ball drop, they're running low enough to run. You start throwing in things, and it should be on what that person did last time and build. Yeah. And a girl in Western Australia, Nikki, she just kept jumping further and further. We actually built on the model, and she'd tick it off and come back, and then that was done. I didn't have to do that phase anymore. It was like spot on, so it's being very systematic, these people, because I don't think, when I was an athlete, I wasn't systematic. I just, like I said, I spoke to everyone and absorbed what they said, and it was really a lot of knowledge. So it was like reading a lot of books, but I didn't have a formula. Yeah. And once I coach, and so hence if I was coaching myself, if I was the president, coaching myself as a young kid coming through, I'd be much more systematic and build blocks and build foundations. And it's not just that, I've stuffed up in the past, and you got to know the blocks, when they work and how they suit that particular athlete. And one of the really good people I worked with through my Melbourne and Hawthorn days, and even he helped out. I just bring him in to help with the Boomers and Opals all the time, Valeri Stoimanov. He really super knowledgeable coach on things, and he'd come out of Bulgaria, and he'd worked with some of the world record holders in the weightlifting and that. And he said, basically, you don't want to have structural problems. It's like an engineer, which he meant postural, he called them defects or something, but they were, like kyphotic. And you're trying to get to a position, and the coach is trying to teach you, well, you want that guy or girl to do something, but physically they're not capable of it because their posture, press and get the bar at a low position, but they're kyphotic. And you think, well, maybe I was just better work with a broomstick first and flexibility and mobility first before, and it takes time. It's a process. And so you've got to identify the stage that needs fixing first before you move to the next one.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that Melbourne and Hawthorn days, like, you were part of a real change in the guard with how footballers prepared from, it sounds like, speaking to Loris Bertolacci and these guys, that you're at the forefront there, and John Quinn changing from steady state running to a lot more intermittent speed based and aerobic based training. What was that like, that transition? And what were some of the things you how did you find that experience changing how footballers prepared their training? Was it hard to get buy-in early days? Did you get the coaches involved? All that stuff?
Jack, it was, we had the first one was, I can give you instant, the great Johnny Platten. I had him doing, first I'll go back to Collingwood in the 90s, and Mark was there, he used to write Ultra Fit and stuff, and I was just doing the weights and the strength and conditioning and stuff, and some of the guys were then, they didn't know that I was involved as a national, well, then they found out I was involved as a national track and field coach, so Mick Gafer and those sort would come in and wanted Craig Starcevich and wanted to do more and more. So you get your so-called disciples that say, oh, look, I need to improve my speed, and away you go. And then, so I did deep water running. I introduced it because I said, some of you guys are injured, and they were big guys trying to run like basically a long distance runner, a 95 kilo guy running on footpaths and roads. And I thought, this is not sensible. So I brought that in. So again, I got rubbished from some quarters. What the F is this? But I'd explain it. A lot of them were actually, like Mick Gafer's, basically like is a draftsman. That they actually saw the point of it, and they got some benefits out of it. So I was thinking, well, that was well ahead of its time. That's in the early 90s, bringing that in.
So the purpose of the deep ready running was to bring the load down and increase their technical component of running, was it? Or
Yeah, they'll make it closer to running rather than just swimming. So you're working the hip flexors, and you can change angles and work hamstrings. You work the arm drive, and you can simulate. We'd worked out if you do it for 30 seconds, you'd get 44 knee drives on one leg. So it was 88. We'd just count one. It was too fast to count double. So we'd trial all this with the athletes, and all the athletes would. Not all, but the really serious athletes were already doing this. And again, it was from translating the stuff that had come through from Eastern Europe and stuff to keep athletes going. And it was verified through really good results. And even some of the guys then the athletes were doing it for their distance running. And you got similar sized guys that were 90 kilograms were running 4 minutes 20 for 1,500 metres. And they were injured and they didn't do any running. And and Debbie Flintoff-King used to actually have that as a compulsory part of her program. And Debbie Flintoff-King, for those that aren't as old as me, 400 metres in Seoul, she won the 400 hurdles gold medal. And that was a compulsory part of her workout. I think that was weekly.
No, so once a week they do a deep
week doing that
session.
And whatever running session that you were doing, and that was and because you didn't have the eccentric forces, you could really top up a lot of the muscular and internal conditioning, like aerobic and anaerobic, depending on what you wanted, and even you could work on a few technical aspects as well. And
sure.
So then we'd Then I get to Hawthorn in the early mid-90s, and Johnny Platt and I again, I'm going, no point you guys doing all this running and your feet breaking down. So I introduced foot massage. I actually went, again as a coach, I went and did a course in massage because I thought my athletes can't afford it, so I'll go to masseur as well if they're in treatment, just for injury prevention. So I kept going back doing courses and updating in aspects of coaching that would help me be a fully more rounded, useful coach and not just in one dimension. And Johnny Platten goes, what's this shit? Massaging in the feet. And I'm going, well, there's no point you building up all these muscles and running and pounding your feet. And if your feet go, that's the end of your career. And in the end, Johnny, it was funny, he wrote in his book, thanks, Baba, for really educating. And the irony of that is, Johnny said, what's this shit, and all that. And then he went back to Central Districts and he invited me to come back and set up their conditioning program at Centrals and in Adelaide.
So recognised it, yeah.
Then he said, listen, Baba, I was doing an 80-metre chase across Waverley. We were at Waverley in those days, and I could hear your voice. Relax, get your shoulders, and I thought, hallelujah, it's all coming through, And that's
getting in his head, yeah.
He actually said it was really as he got older, and that sort of thing, and then we changed the game in those days to a real more intervals, but more speed. Players knew, like. I always used to say, now, in distance running, most of the marathon runners that line up in the Olympics have probably got a similar VO2. So what does one runner beat the other by 5 or 8 or 10 minutes? Because there's something to do with their efficiency and their mental state. So we tried to make runners very efficient as well, because the game goes on and on saying if you're efficient, there's less breakdown. Less tissue breakdown means next week you'll come better and you'll get a better run through towards the end of the season. I remember once we'd done that and Ken Judge, we won. I said, Judge, I reckon we'll go better at the end of the year because it was a young squad he'd taken over. And we won, I think, the last 5 games. And he said he started to be converted because Judge was pretty well of, just let him get a kick. And the same, I had him coming and we did athletics. We competed as the Glen Huntley Hawks, and we could only compete in athletics. We started in D grade, and it was really performance-based. The guys loved it, and Crawford and those. There was 2 of them finished up with national rankings, Crawford and Ben Dixon. Ben Dixon threw the javelin 70 metres. And there was some real talent there, but they actually...
How do they fit that in with their football
training? That was a Saturday. You know how everyone sometimes does a Saturday run? Well, that was their choice.
That was what they did. Yeah.
And first athletics people didn't like it, but the actual athletes did. But the authorities thought, what's this? Paying fees, and the athletes do all of this. In the end, crowds were starting to front up because they wanted to
see Crawford run. What would Crawford run in?
He ran everything. He did a high jump, a pole vault,
High jump,
a shot. Yeah, he actually high jumped 185. So and also he did the 100, 200, 400, 800. He got a ranking in the 800. He ran 1 minute 55. He finished up running. Glenn Huntley took him on to run in their A grade team. He ran 155 for an 8, and he ran 4 minutes, I think 403 or 405 for a 1500. And one day he got really shitty. He ran like 417, and he thought that's it. And they were enrolling them, so he finished at the home straight. And instead of filling his name in where he finished, he went straight to the next race and ran like about 420 something. So he did 3K. But he just loved it. And what it did, I always used to say, well, I think this is going to be a running game the way it's going. And it's like seeing ahead where I saw the game as, I saw the players as well under conditioned for the interval initially. And then I thought, now if we can get these players faster and more repeat speed, we'll get the jump on them. And obviously Quinny thought the same with Essendon. And we started to focus on that. And it happened, we were at a camp. It was quite an interesting story. It was that Shane Crawford was always breaking down, again, a bigger body for a distance runner and doing 10 kilometre runs. He used to just go out and run. And that's all he knew. That was the system back then around the boulevard on the roads. And we had a camp with the Hawks at the Monash University, and they had a grass running track, which is now a car park just up from the rec centre. And I had this guy, Craig Ferber, who he was a 7 metre 80 long jumper, but he was also he could run 21.3 for a 200. He was very fast, and 10.5 for 100. And he was well out of shape. Ferber liked his food and stuff in McDonald's and stuff. I had a lot of traumas with him, so he could have anything. Jai Tarima used to call him Homer or Fatty Ferber, but said he's the only one. Jai's an Olympic silver medalist, so I got Ferbs. I knew he could run. He was 97 kilograms, and I said, Ferbs, can you pace Crawf through a 400? And he said yes, and so they went. Crawford took off 15 metres ahead by the first 100 around the bend, and then by the second 100, so they hit the 200 mark, and Ferber's only like 5 metres behind, running beautifully and efficiently and smoothly. Crawford was running like a flat chat, and because he had that fitness, and Ferber was totally out of shape. And then they got around the bend into the home straight, and Ferber went past him, trying not to go. I told him my instruction was no belittling any of the players if you do happen to get there. I knew he'd go okay, but I thought he'd just pace him. But anyway, they got to the straight, and Ferber's yelling out, "Get on my back, Crawf, get on my back." And I still remember they ran like 58.6 seconds around that sort of time, and Ferber won by about 3 metres, and Crawf was distraught. And I said, "You believe me, the intervals?" And he said, and I said, "And you even let this fat guy beat you." And then Chance beat him. And he wears glasses too.
Smart.
So that after that, he'd become a real disciple intervals, and went on to get the Brownlow and stuff, and big change for him.
Yeah. What do we got up on the wall? A little bit more to the left. Oh, other way, sorry. That's it. Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah. So he's a disciple in that way.
Sure is.
And good. The thing is that it's like every athlete; they have to understand and buy in. And his came with the shock of Fatty Ferber killing a 97 kilo shape athlete, and in front of a few of his teammates, and it was like, okay. And And as far as the drills go and knowing how to run them, we had the same with a lot of, another story was Roden Tallis, who had a big motor, and he used to do we called them like high knee drills, but we did them in like hard positions with one arm, arms above head, a plate above the head, and then walk backs. And that's all he did for the whole summer because he had
that
really
stuff's resurfaced as like the France Bosch stuff.
That's
similar.
it. Yeah. I think it was his first run. I can remember the boys, Shane Crawford, Ben Dixon, Daniel Chick, Aaron Lord, and Angelo Lekis. All of them were good runners, and they went and ran a 1500 at Olympic Park. We were just sort of crossing. We'd come across from a training session, walked across, and they said, "Let's have a race." Come on, don't worry about training loads. Just went off, and Roden Tallis ran. He was actually leading for 3 laps, and all he did was those drills. And because the players would hang it on him, going, "Oh, you're slack." We're all doing 1Ks and doing all these masses of running loads, and he couldn't do any of it because of bad patella tendonitis. But those drills meant he was landing with his foot underneath his knee, not out the front. So the knee were minimal. I'd worked that out through some of the basketballers we'd worked with, and being big guys, and also being involved as national jumps coach for 12 years. It's called jumper's knee, patella tendonitis. Yeah. So all the coaches, the information swap was magnificent. Everyone would just help everyone through. It was just a real fraternity of coaches. And so anyway, he ran 4 minutes 28 on just doing the drills, and I thought, and he finished up that year going against Ben Cousins and getting 2 votes because he tagged him and Cousins couldn't outrun him. And I just thought, so you learn from, if you collect enough data and you start thinking, well, this works. When you come across nothing, all the time. And it takes time, and it takes trust because the players didn't trust that method. They were certainly thinking that doesn't look hard, and it's not the volume of grinding type running, and it's not what everyone else does, and that's the big thing. Any conditioning coaches out there, any aspiring ones, is don't just do what everyone else does. Look at the game, dissect the game, really understand it, and I used to go to every meeting that the coaches would go that allowed me to go into, because I thought, I'm not on your level in footy, but I want to know what you're doing, and I want to know how I can help it. You can't be arrogant and start saying, I'm going to put a limit of 20 kicks on this or that sort of thing, and saying, well, I know everything, when you don't know enough about football. If you do, well, then you can say, well, the 20 kicks can affect you, but you really need to, you don't do it because some other club's doing it. You need to know what your people can do, and also, if you do have a deficiency in kicking, sometimes you've got to do that over something else, maybe. Of course, So it just depends, and so you've really got to understand what the total picture of the total team and the total model. So
Carl's just sent through a message who's been tuned in and he's listening. Carl sent through, what's your most inspirational athlete you've worked with and why?
Oh, thanks, Carl. I've worked with, they all inspire me. Funny, it's like I said, I learn from the highest achiever. Like I've had some really high achievers, like in every event, the one that I learned a lot from and still learn a lot from is one of the basketballers, David Anderson. He just got called back to play for Melbourne United. David's 41 next month. I've coached him since he was 19. And I always say, and David's been, again, really good. I use him as a mentor in all my groups. And I can still remember Jordan Ridley from Essendon training with him as a 13-year-old. Still got the videos, how I collected Jordan with the opals and David. And Jack Higgins was in that session, and Cody Waite. So 3 as all really young, tiny little kids coming through. And Jordan said to me, I can't believe it. I had a guy that plays in these Dave's shirt there, and he spoke to me and he gave me all his rollers and told me how to stretch, and he told me what it takes to be a professional. I'm thinking, he goes, NBA people, the image is that they're all people are arrogant, but I use Dave to mentor a lot of these up-and-coming kids, to make them feel comfortable around a top performer, that you just see that they're just a normal human being, that does what they do really well. And to answer Carl's question, why he's so good, is I don't know, I just go, he's got what it takes mentally. And one of the questions that you were saying is, where's the next developments going? And I always look at, Dave said to me, look, I'm not the best in anything, physically or whatever. He said, but they're never going to beat me on the court. I'll put it all together. I know how to put it together. And that's the side, I reckon, that if you can get, there's a quality in the champions. It's the same when I met Victor Sanaev, and he was throwing the medicine ball back with Andrew Murphy, who's coaching Rowan Browning now, the fastest sprinter in Australia. And Andrew was Australia's best triple jumper, and he'd throw the medicine ball backward, forward, and Victor was 55 at that point, and that's the guy that won 3 Olympics and silver at 4th, and he kept teasing him, just throwing it past him. And I was with National Junior Squad, and I said to the kids, I just sort of whispered to them, watch what he's doing. He's teasing him and he's cajoling him, but he said, he's the coach, he shouldn't be trying to belittle him. And he said he can throw much further, but he's just bringing this Andrew Murphy and teasing him. And Andrew was getting frustrated. And I said, this is why Victor's such a champion. The mentality is different to anyone else. And then Victor said, what for are you looking at me? And I'm going, Victor, you've won 3 Olympics and a silver. I said, there's something special about you. You're the 0.1% of the human race. And he goes, okay, I'm talking about. And I thought, he understood, I understood him, that he had a different mentality of what, and those people know. And the same, even him, when he showed me the Soviet things, he was a Georgian, and got to be careful, you can't call them Russians, because they were all put under that system. But he had crosses through certain drills. And I said, Victor, why is this? And he goes, I watched this and I see this squad that did these exercises and they eventually all broke down. And he said, that is not good. And I'm going, what about psychology? He said, well, his wife was a trained psychologist. He said, I don't need psychology, my wife's a psychologist. but he was psychology training.
Yeah.
And so...
That's the future, you think?
These people are different mentally, and that's the same. Shane Crawford's different mentally. You see how he interacts, and and I think that's, like, everyone can do all the physical things and the physical tests, but the ones that really get it and know where they're going, they have a special quality, and that's why I always around. I try to get Dave Anderson in with any up-and-coming kids because I want them to absorb. I don't know what it is. I said, don't watch him on the skills, the drills, not the drills. You might even beat him, but don't think that that's the be-all and end-all. He'll teach you something else. And you look at his resume and it reads like 5 pages of been to 4 Olympics and playing in the US and all over Europe and starting.
He knows how to bring it together. Yeah.
And I've had the privilege of working with some of the Opals girls that are underrated because they're women, they don't get exposed, like Christy Harrower, an unbelievable player. And again, mentally got it together. And Lauren Jackson helping her with the rehab. And it's like, they're different mental capacities to a lot of us. And I can't put a finger on it, but so all I do is associate athletes around them and it feeds off, and you start to it's this aura. It's almost it's real, but it's almost a mystical type thing. But they know how to do it, and they're not lazy, but they work and they know how much work, and and they're very tough. They just know this is the job. Let's get on with it. It's not like excuses or reasons not to do it, and. And I suppose I don't know him, but I almost look at Dusty Martin would have the same sort of aura and feel, according to what you hear from players.
Absolutely. Well, we'll start to wrap it up. Darren Rockman sent through a question for you. I know you know Darren. He said, How has the AFL changed over the years, purely from a running perspective? And what do you see the future? You know, I know you've consulted with AFL clubs. Where do you see the future of AFL conditioning going?
Yeah, just from conditioning, I think it's definitely getting faster, but they're trying to slow it down. So I just think, you just need to be well-rounded and be prepared for wherever the game's going to go, but you have to look at the game and see where it's going, because the rules keep changing all the time, and so does the game, and the administrators keep changing it. So if you're like speed power-based, do not neglect the endurance side as well, like a high level of knowledge. And I think where the game should go, in a way, is I think a lot of it's bringing people. I think they need to outsource some of the people that are really good at certain things, still control it. Like analogy is Matthew Lloyd with King. He might have something to offer, but the Saints, for their reason, don't want him to go outside their system, and that's a good reason what they've got too. But I think even off-season, it's going to go like in America, where LeBron hires his people and knows, and that's not just that. And I always said to Dave Anderson, like, you've been to like 15, 16, 20 teams, and counting national teams, you're going to have 15 to 20 different conditioning coaches. So each one might have a different philosophy. You need someone. The thing you do is surround yourself with a team of people that you trust, and that includes psychologists and all that type of thing, because you just can't get to know someone just because they get recruited and sent to your team through a pre-season. You really have to have developed them, and I almost think not so much at the club. I think it's pretty similar to what Barcelona do. I actually stayed in Barcelona for 5 months with David Anderson, with the basketball and the soccer team, and they were all in one. But their development systems are probably what AFL needs to. They're trying to do, but their squads, their junior squads, are developed along the lines of what they want to feed into their main model, but their main coaches also work with their junior coaches and had full access. Because I was the only one in the stadium that security would let me in, as well as I looked across one day, every so often, once a week, there'd be these 20 people, and they were all men and women, all different coaches that were allowed in on their specialist sessions, and were developing those coaches along those lines. And I think, and then that system feeds into it, and I'm looking at the AFL, the talent pool is getting more shallower because they have to go overseas to get them, and they've got 18 teams instead of how they used to have like 14 and 16, and they keep increasing it. So the talent pool needs to be developed. So I think they need really good development coaches to help develop, because otherwise I think that the turnaround's about 3 to 4 years, and the players then disappear and they go into the other feeder leagues, and you need to develop. I think a lot of the talent is missed, and the expertise in development coaches will be really important. And that's where the running, to briefly answer Darren's question, is know all your running, distance, the technical side, the speed, but also the running. Like I've got one, my bugbear is with the agility tests that they do in the draft camp, and you're running it then. And you see, particularly a lot of the really good ball runners will run really well with a ball, like especially some of the Indigenous guys who just have better. Some of them will actually run better. And I almost think they should have some of the testing with a ball on the running, because players won't run with a ball and they still might be very fast, but they're not so fast with a ball in their hand. And
so
running
talent identification.
Is an offensive run. Running with a ball is an offensive run. So that type of thing, and I think that type of thing needs to be put into, because coaches need to see that sort of thing. Plus, also taught. It's like my analogy is. I worked with a high jumper, Tim Forsyth. I wasn't his coach. His coach was Sandro Gazzetto. And Tim said, look, 90% of my time, and he jumped 2 metres 36 and a bronze medal in Barcelona. He said 90% of my jump is my run-up. He said that's the main thing I practice. And again, I just wonder whether in some of the execution of skill that they actually practice the running, because it could be I personally feel there's a technique in running that's suited to kicking on the run, and different types of runs, like an exit run out of a pack, or there's a different run at already getting the ball at top speed. It's a different way to run, and it's no different to even 100 metres. You have your power out of the blocks, acceleration, and then the maintenance phase, and so you need to know every aspect of it. And in the same middle distance running is a different way of running than sprinting. So, and also understanding the loads that each of them gives you, and also the breakdown that you get from overloading each of the systems. I think just keep gathering knowledge, and when the game changes, you're then ready for those changes, and then
you can pivot.
Yeah, and also when you see the result, in the off season, the rules are changing. You go, right, well, we've got to do this.
What's that going to mean?
You're stuck with the people that you recruited. You might have recruited a lot of tall guys that basically are not fast, or that's a generalisation, because some of the tall guys are the quickest guys in the league, but they're not fast with a ball and low down. They're actually fast running, but they're not
as mobile.
Getting the ball, not as mobile, not as agile.
Yeah, very good, mate. Well, I've certainly taken down a lot of notes, so thank you so much for the stories and all the information you've provided along the way. You've almost provided us a framework, or a small snippet of the Bohdan framework. Anyway, it's been keen to learn more, and keen to catch up with you in person as well, and
I'd love to
see in the flesh once all this lockdown's done. What's on the horizon for you, mate? What are you excited for 2021?
I just some of the kids I'm coaching, that's all. I'm just really excited because I know they're coming through, and a lot of people can't see it because you're busy working on the project side of it. And it's like I can see things happening, and you don't want to push on them, but I know certain kids are going to have exceptional years, but I don't build them for the year. I'm building them for their career. So it's like if you're hoping for one of the kids or girls or guys to get drafted, a lot of people want to get them drafted. Yes, I do, but I like them to have a long career and a successful career like a David Anderson, and play the game they love for a long period of time. And they probably don't realise if you do that they'll think, oh, well, I've done well. But as a conditioning coach, that you've had some part to play in longevity of them. And that's what I look forward to. And I've got a couple of projects that I'm hoping to do well in footy. And then, funny enough, the lady that I coach that still holds Australian triple jump record, they're having a campaign to try and break her record, and she's got a 13-year-old daughter that I'm going to take on in Australia and try the same thing. So one of the real challenges is if Nikki's daughter can be the first to break her record. It'll take about
that'd be cool.
4 or 5 years. So that'll be a little challenge. It's got me back into the sport.
Fantastic. It's amazing. It's inspirational, mate, to hear about your passion and your care for helping others. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your time.
Much appreciated, Jack. Thanks for having us, and thanks for everyone that's tuned in as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, cool data. I wasn't very good. Wasn't very helpful there.
What was that?
Sorry about the technical mishaps at the start. I don't think I was very happy.
You're not the only one. It's a different setup that I'm doing with the live stuff, so it has its complications. But we got there in the end. That's the main thing.
And they've done it really well. Much appreciated. Made it really comfortable. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jack.
And thanks for tuning in, guys. Make sure if you enjoyed this episode, I will post it. So if you missed Bohdan at the start, you can check it out on the Facebook page to watch the very beginning. and we will post it on iTunes, Spotify and YouTube on a Monday in coming weeks. So stay tuned, subscribe to our podcast, and thanks for listening.